live from Berlin, Germany. We've only got 4 games left to play for each team, and we still haven't locked in any playoff participants just yet. But you know what? That could change. That could change today.
Yes, it could.
Yeah, we've got some.
Will.
Every game counts here at the LEC.
That it does.
Yeah, it does.
That it does.
Good. I'm glad. Finally, we agree on something, because we haven't agreed on anything this morning, including how we're going to sound for the show.
I love your socks, by the way.
Thank you very much. They're not mine.
Glad we had that qualifier.
Then the bodysuit are mine. Goldborg, how are you feeling? We've got kind of like a tonal thing going on.
I'm not going to be part of this conversation. I think if we just move on, then
Don't
I'll
like
feel...
socks?
There's not the socks. There's more the tension between the two of you.
Yeah, it's fine. Mum and Dad are fighting. We'll make up later. Yesterday's games were lightning quick, as we've had the fastest day of the LEC 2022 summer season so far. Guys, what are your thoughts on that? Did you actually get some sleep last night for once?
No. I was too hard at work reviewing all of the intense games yesterday. Fortunately, it didn't take me long because of how fast all the games were. I think that we saw some very one-sided affairs where it seems that teams were very well prepared in terms of what they wanted to bring to the Rift. But I do have some theories that the meta shift with the patch change has actually accelerated the rate of play, largely because with more gold now coming from Herald, with dragons actually being more powerful than what they were, I do feel like the resources teams are given when they are ahead have now been made even stronger, making it easier to snowball. So I'm hoping that we see a similar trend today, but if things shift, maybe it was just a one-day thing and teams are just feeling it and others weren't.
And that's the thing, right? Because I think it's a good theory when you take a look at what actually happened, but it's only one day sample size and it could easily be what you ended on there, which is just like, well, it's just a one-off thing. Sometimes in the best of one scenario, you just have these dominant performances and the games will just be quicker.
Something we didn't necessarily expect yesterday was Rogue taking down Mad Lions and doing it in such style.
Quite right. The expectations were that Mad would come in as the heavy favorites, especially given their early game dominance, but I was very surprised by how well Rogue were able to shut down Elyoya and his early aggression. I think the other big thing that tied into me was Mad were trying something a little different with their draft. They were going for a little bit more scaling. I felt that Kaiser was a little bit more locked in to his bot lane rather than roaming around with Elyoya, and that just gave a lot more agency for Malrang to interact with the map and really get his laners ahead.
Yeah, and I think even on the opposite end of that spectrum, with Rogue, finally we started them actually using their pieces together, finding good team fights. And while in the mid game it did become a bit sloppy with Matt securing up a Baron for themselves, Rogue was still able to come together, good solid setup for the team fight themselves and just finish what they started. And I think very subvert, what do you say that? Subverting of expectations, my expectations coming into this, because it generally felt like Mad Lions were just going to be the favorites and they're going to continue to be that moving forward. But Rogue, they shot me up.
Well, you can see Mad Lions are still sitting at the top of the table, but you know what, Rogue? Maybe they take over today. Maybe Rogue win, Mad loses.
I think the important thing to remember there is Rogue actually have the 2-0 head-to-head over the Mad Lions. So in the event of a tie-breaking situation, Rogue will be able to get that edge, which is why these last 4 games still matter a lot for Mad, especially with out-qualifying for playoffs last split. They don't have a lot of championship points to work with, which could just make their playoff run even harder, even if they have a dominant regular season.
And it's not only that, it's not just the top teams that's suddenly gearing in towards them. You just take a look about the rest of them from 4th place, Misfits, G2 Esports, they're only 2 games away. If they manage to suddenly pick up their last few games on the course to Super Weeks, Mad Lions dropped the ball before that, even with the championship playoffs points, that's going to have massive implications for Mad Lions.
Mehdi, you're ready? Apologies.
Shout out to Mehdi.
Yeah, shout out to Mehdi. I missed you, by the way. We were talking a little bit, just a few moments ago, about the new patch and how it's impacted things in terms of game times. But in terms of champions, we didn't really see much difference, apart from maybe Sejuani picked a little bit more in the top lane.
Yeah, we did see some Sejuani at the beginning of the split kind of have mixed success, but it seems to have come back into power given its role as being a frontliner, being a safe top side, and also having a few aggressive interactions against some of the now squishy and Gnar matchups that you do see in the top lane. I was very surprised to see that solo kill come out from Irrelevant, but I think that Sejuani is now filling a role that needs to come in given the nerfs to things like Gangplank and the Gnar.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because all of a sudden it's also really good for some of the teams that were struggling. If you think back to yesterday's games, Fnatic picked up the Ornn, G2 picked up the Sejuani for themselves, Irrelevant on the Seju 2. It's just the fact that you create these super easy teamfight composition. And when the game has become so dominant around these neutral objectives, well, we will see more teamfights and we will potentially see faster games. So it's really important that you just have a strong front line for a solid backline carry.
I'm just hoping that we will get to see some Pantheon. We did get to see a little bit of LeBlanc. We got to see a little bit of Jarvan.
You're sneaking it in. You're really trying for it.
I mean, we've seen it over in the LPL, but I genuinely think that Pantheon Twisted Fate, Pantheon Nilea, the ability to attack side lanes, the early game aggression. I think Pantheon is a lot stronger than pro teams are giving credit for right now. I'm just hoping it's just a matter of when they'll figure it out. That
sounds like the perfect Eliolia Niski combination. So keep your eyes on that mad game later. But also, the LEC celebrated a world premiere yesterday with the first Nilea in competitive play. And I've got one of the members, along with Kajal, of the Nilea fan club to help us out with her, with how you play her.
Yeah, I don't know why production included that I love Nia. It's not the case, but maybe I can make you love Nilea with this breakdown. I'm not sure. Hello, everybody. And yes, even though they didn't manage to pick up a win yesterday, well, I thought it'd be good to let everybody know exactly how this champion functions. So let's dive into her passive. Joy Unending. Apparently seems she taps into power of some Joy Demon. I'm not really sure about her lore, but whenever an ally shields Nilea or themselves, Nilea get a little bonus shield for herself. Additionally, when she also kills some minions, the nearest allied champion gains additional 50% XP that would have been lost from Sharon. So as we can see in the clip right now, the Nilea bot lane reaches level 4, 2 minions before you usually would. So, wow, pretty good in terms of getting a lane advantage. Formless Blade, her Q, it gives you armor penetration and lifesteal based on crit chance, so pretty good for AD carries. Slapping enemies with the Formless Blades give Nilea extra attack range and bonus attack speed, and she also gets some AoE damage on that. The W, Jubilant Veil, is Nilea immune now. I'm not quite sure, but she takes reduced magic damage and she blocks all non-turret basic attacks for 2.5 seconds. She can also give one champion the exact same effect if they touch each other. Moving on to her E, Slipstream. It's the Samira E, guys, except you can actually do it on your allies now, and you can cast a Q at the same time to build in some extra damage. Her ultimate, who write these names, honestly? Basically, it's a Diana ultimate, and she kind of just spins around her grip, healing herself and dealing damage, and then she pulls all the enemies towards her, kind of just with, you know, the Diana effect. We all know it. There's also some rune setups. I know that Patrick were using it yesterday. These were the runes he was running. Conqueror, obviously good for fighters. She's also melee, easy stacking it up. And then actually in the secondary tree, a little bit different. Second win, good when you're a melee. You take some poke damage from one who outranged you. You heal it back up, pretty nice. Revitalize, extra healing. Once again, she kind of just pairs up nice with lifesteal. She has it in her kit, pretty good. And then standard AD carry runes. Here's some nice pairings for her in the bot lane and elsewhere on the map. We saw it with Tarek yesterday. That have been one of the good pairings, but just due to the fact you get shielding, you can dash in, you get the E ultimate invulnerability. It kind of just rides itself there. Lulu as well, Enchanter, movement speed, polymorphs, ultimates when you dash in, syncs up nicely with the ultimate. And then Renata, because you want to be melee, because you want to be in their face, because you can make yourself immune, having the ability to also just all of a sudden revive afterwards, perfect. Yasuo, it's a Diana ultimate, Senna kind of makes up for what it lacks in lane. And hopefully, you all now have a better understanding of League's newest champion now. Yeah, hope you like that breakdown of Nilea. That's her name.
I really enjoyed it, but I'm wondering what you thought of Patrick's performance on it. Did you have any takeaways from that?
I actually think, like, in terms of the Nileas I've seen, and majority of that sample size is my Diamond 2 solo queue games, way better than what I'm used to seeing, at least. So, yeah, I think it was fine. I think when it came together as playing for this champion as a team, it was a little bit lacking. It is quite unique in terms of what it does, because it's an AD carry with setup also for your teams. And usually it's the team that sets up the AD carry. So it has a little bit of different intricacies.
Yeah, I think that it's a champion that hasn't quite been figured out just yet. And I think that it needs a little bit more damage coming from the rest of the comp because it doesn't quite come online until much later into the game.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we do get to see a little bit more. I don't think we saw the full potential of the champion just yet, but I definitely think that it does have some potential.
Also, cosplayers, you get to have some LED whips. While XL couldn't get the win with Nilea yesterday, they will need to secure more wins in the coming games to secure their spot in the playoffs. So looking at this tight midfield, we wanted to ask the fans at home which team will not make it into playoffs. So spam G2, MSF, FNC, or XL in chat now. You get to have some power make the most of it and make the right decision. You don't actually get to decide who goes. But, you know, I'm interested in your opinion. I'm interested in yours as well, looking at the standings right now and also bearing in mind the schedule. XL, shouldn't they have kind of an easy run here?
Well, they definitely should, because when you look at their recent performance, I would actually say that of the 4 teams, XL's probably the one that's underperforming the most. From what we saw at the beginning of the split compared to where they're at now, this team has showcased very little growth. It feels like that they've kind of plateaued out while every other team has progressively gotten better around them. And that leaves more questions than rather good answers from this roster. But given their strength of schedule, things do look pretty promising for them, because in their upcoming games, they will be playing Astralis, SK, and BDS, which means that of the bottom teams, they should be set up for success. Yes, they will have a difficult matchup against Rogue, but if they can secure themselves 3 more wins, getting to 10 wins is usually more than enough to secure you a spot in playoffs. So I feel like XL's set up for success based on their current schedule.
Who then isn't set up for success?
It's really difficult, and honestly, at the end of the day, I'm calling it right now. We'll have a 4-way tie going into Super Week, but I think specifically Misfits is actually going to be the team struggling a little bit, and reason for that is that they're playing against some of their opposition. If you already take a look at the teams right now, you can see both G2, Fnatic, and Misfits are all playing each other in a potential 3-way tie as well towards the end of it. But I just think when we finally get towards the last standing, towards the final games where you're playing against Fnatic, when you're playing against G2, I think Misfits will have a hard time. And yes, they have BDS in their pool, which essentially should be a free win at this point in time. They also have Mad Lions, and that does make matters difficult.
Oh my word. Over 50% of the fans think Fnatic is going to miss. So I think what's crazy about, I mean, that I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. Like, obviously you can see like a little bit more balanced G2, Misfits, XL, but 55% think Fnatic are gonna crumble. Bear in mind, like, so you look at their schedule once again, you can see that Fnatic do play both G2 and Misfits, teams that they are directly competing against. Then they play against Astralis and Vitality. So the question that you guys at home need to be asking is, what are the chances of G2 beating Mad? What are the chances of Misfits beating Mad? And then what are the chances of Fnatic beating Vitality? Because those are the games that could separate them from the pack, given that they will be fighting each other as well.
I'm calling it. There's a load of G2 fans in chat. That's what it is. It's bias. But you know what? It's a bias that I love, because tonight, 2 teams in the middle of the playoff race will clash, because it's Fnatic versus G2 in our LG Ultra Gear match of the week.
We could win every game and go 11-7, I believe, right now, which would get us into like the top seedings. There's always new ways of playing the game that maybe we can grasp this and actually take the win this time.
Mad find an opportunity and they completely punish Fnatic.
You can understand how a team is communicating and thinking and playing by how they move on the map, how they add multiple members to plays. When I look at Fnatic, I rarely see the elements of their training and practice coming to light on stage. G2 will almost always mirror their opponents. They will rise to the level of strong teams, and they can sometimes struggle against weaker teams.
I think we're all really strong players on Fnatic, and the last time we played them, it showed. So it has to be some individual plays coming out from us, and maybe a better draft could help a lot as well.
They used to be quite successful, so maybe them missing out on Worlds is not something that necessarily many people want to see, but you know, if they are not good enough to make playoffs, then they are not good enough to make Worlds.
Trundle now coming up, Pillar to land on the flank, it's zoning him away, instantly gonna find the kill!
If you're a really good team, you get through these things.
The triple for Twitch, and the game for Fnatic!
What I would say is, for a team like Fnatic, if there were a team, if there were a time, if there were a moment to show how good you are, it would be against their perennial rivals in G2 esports.
But is this quite weird for you to witness, the fact that one of these 2 legendary teams might not make playoffs?
I mean, it's definitely weird, yeah. It's a constant that you don't really expect to ever change, but with the competitive nature that is esports, like, it's not surprising that new teams have been able to rise up and these organizations are starting to struggle. So on the one hand, like, yes, I am surprised, but in the same vein, I'm also very excited, because I just think it only adds more to the story between these 2 teams. And what's crazy is how much they've taken from each other. Now they have the opportunity to take from each other once again.
And I think it's also just the expectations coming into the year, right? Fnatic was supposed to be this, super team we had as well. Razok was filling in. He finally had a full team he could play around. All the question was, how is this actually going to look like now? G2 on the other end, they're bringing in rookies. They're bringing in FLICKR and they're bringing in Tokamus. So for them to be in a position at the start of a year, I could have said, oh yeah, I think it makes sense that they're going to fight for players. But after seeing what they did in spring and after seeing the history of both teams coming into today, I feel like it's just so crazy the fact that we're in a situation where one of them might miss out on playoffs. It's not even missing out on top 3 or top 4. It's like missing out on playoffs. It's crazy.
Both G2 and Fnatic have participated in a lot of LEC finals, a combined 22 to be precise. Yes, I plucked that number off the top of my head. So we decided to test our casters on their history knowledge. Let's take a look.
Is there more places where I can recover, or is this almost the end?
No, I still have a geography test for you.
Geography test?
No, not geography, dude. My geography sucked.
Okay, geography.
Yeah, so the LEC has been all around Europe for the last couple of years. I'm going to show you a map of Europe, of the locations it's been to.
This is going to be a disaster.
I want you to name the cities, the country they belong to, and the year the finals were in.
Okay.
Provided they weren't in Berlin.
Great, I'm so bad in geography and everything else that I found is lost forever now. That Belgium?
Is that Amsterdam in Netherlands?
For some reason, I wanted to say Rostock, but it's definitely not Rostock. It feels like it's something with R, though, doesn't it?
Rotterdam.
Rotterdam. I knew it was
What year?
2019 spring.
Right, of course it is.
In 2016 spring.
Of course it is.
And that was the reckless Tristana pentakill. We're in Sweden.
Which city?
Now, this is the card part. I want to say that is it Malmo? Because I don't think that's Oslo. I don't think Oslo's there.
Stockholm, Sweden?
Was that in 2017?
2015 summer?
Correct.
Okay.
Is it Copenhagen? Don't record this. Is this Denmark?
It is Denmark.
It's Denmark. Copenhagen, Denmark. Google would kill me, by the way.
2019.
That was Fnatic and G2. That must have been 2018 spring. That was the 3-0.
Oh, poop.
Okay, so now we go in Germany. Is that Cologne? The far left one?
But I have no idea. Was that 2016?
2017?
2013 and 2014. 2013 was when the studio was there, and 2014 was when Gamescom.
Now, that little dot underneath the Denmark one, that's the one that concerns me, because that little location, I can't remember.
Is there a Frankfurt one?
Is that Hamburg?
But Hamburg?
That shows you how much I know German geography. Yep.
2017 spring.
I guess I'm good at geography. I'm not so good at dates.
Okay, so let's do the country next to Germany, which is Poland.
Okay, so it would either be Warsaw probably, or it would be, that really famous Polish stadium that is always used for things like Intel Extreme Masters and all that I've completely forgotten about.
Which probably means that it was in Katowice.
Katowice, Poland?
Okay, well, I was at one of these finals, which was in Poland, Krakow, 2016 summer. I was there for that one. See, I remember that one.
Oh, I was there for Krakow. No, I wasn't. I was actually in Australia for Krakow, but I do remember Krakow, yes.
One of the things that's been great about knowing that we were going to see that video today is how insistent Vedi is about the fact that he got it right by saying that Oslo is not in Sweden.
And that's correct. I did not think Oslo was in Sweden.
You know what? You didn't actually say that. No, hang on. Let me just get this right.
The quote
you just
I said was,
it's not in Oslo. You didn't say Oslo's not in Sweden.
I said, I don't think it's Oslo. Oslo isn't there. That's what I said.
Not in Sweden, but also...
Which is grammatically correct.
It wasn't even Sweden, it was Denmark.
But
no, that was in Sweden.
That was Sweden!
That was Sweden.
Because the correct answer was Denmark.
No, the answer to that one was Sweden.
Okay,
it was Copenhagen, Sweden.
It was Copenhagen, Sweden.
Sweden?
Yeah, can we just Can we do a live replay of that, please? I just need to...
I'm tired, okay?
And that was the reckless Tristana.
We have a replay?
We're in Sweden.
Which city?
Now, this is the card part. I want to say that it's... Is it Malmo? Because I don't think that's Oslo.
See?
I don't think Oslo's
The
there.
equivalent you're saying here.
I don't think that's Oslo.
So what you're saying?
I don't think that's Oslo.
What you're
and
saying?
That's true. I don't think it's Oslo.
Maybe we need to do a fan vote.
Maybe we need to move on.
No, we were told we had a lot of time.
Unfortunately, I've heard in my ear that Vedius has to do the rest of the show, and we're a bit worried she's going to walk off. So instead, we have to move on, apparently. We've got some League of Legends to play, so let's take a look at today's schedule, and you guys can tell me what you're looking forward to as we put Oslo Gate behind us. Vedius, anything standing out to you?
Well, the easy one is the Misfits versus Mad. I think it has. It's not necessarily implications for the standings, but given Misfits' recent trajectory with a 3-0 right now that they have with Zanzara, they're looking good. They're looking better. And with Mad's small bump in the road yesterday, I wouldn't suddenly count Mad out, and I would still rate them as the favorites going into the matchup. But let's see if the Zanzara effect can maintain that trajectory, right? Imagine if they can keep this win streak going and really secure that spot in playoffs.
Yeah, because one side is Misfits, but the other side is Mad Lions, right? Because they are just Vitality's right behind them, Rogue right behind them. They drop games now, Vitality, Rogue pick up wins. All of a sudden, Mad Lions not first any longer. So for them, it's also so pivotal they don't drop the ball.
And I really want to remind people of the implications here. Because Mad didn't qualify to playoffs last split, they have no championship points, which means that when we get to playoffs, once you've qualified, your seeding is then influenced by both your regular season position and last split's points. So Mad needs to finish as high as possible to give themselves the best setup for playoffs.
Well, a team that is on the up right now is Vitality, and they're going to be facing off against Astralis in game number 1. And they've been, as I said, doing really good. So, Bed, you actually wanted to run us through what has changed in their play style to get them into this favourable position.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not running off, okay? Just so you know. I'm just going to educate the viewers on some cool stuff.
Man the doors.
That we're just going to talk about some cool stuff that Vitality continue to show. Because yesterday, Guldberg demonstrated that Vitality have actually been very good in terms of their early game approach. And this was a play that was actually a little uncharacteristic from Vitality in terms of their level of aggression. So let's start with this level 1 ward that we had from Haru. This has become normal here in Europe, and trying to get the information as to where the jungler starts is very valuable to the jungler. Now you can see that the jungler on the other side of the rift is starting on the bot side, so Haru's going to do his blue into the Gromp, and then he's going to move towards an invade. Now I want to very quickly pause it because you'll notice that this ward was dropped here by Kiana, and it was pinged out by Perks as well. So Haru is going to path in a way that actually avoids this vision and gains access into the red buff. Now, bear in mind, when we look at the minimap, mid does have Prior, which is valuable. Bot is also getting this push, but top lane does not. This Kennen actually has control over the wave, which means that should a fight kick off, it could be dangerous for Haru. Also note that Syncroft has done a full clear on the bot side, and he actually finds himself a level 3. So not only does Syncroft find himself with a level advantage here, but Haru only being level 2 and only has his mid laner to help support him, this actually doesn't look like the safest invade, but Vitality don't care. They're going to go for it anyway. So Haru on the Trundle, he starts off this. Perks is hovering around, ready to rotate ahead of the Kiana, and then the junglers face off against each other. Now watch what they do here. They actually target the red buff to make sure that they can smite the other way. Syncroft doesn't have his smite up just yet. This then gives Haru the level up, and now with the level up that he has and the strength of Trundle in the early game, he's able to secure an early game kill. Now, while this clip is short, and while I'm going to start walking back, what's crazy about this is the level of commitment and mechanical execution required to pull that play off, because there was a lot of risk there. There was a lot of things that could have gone wrong for Vitality, and in the past, this is something we would never see from Vitality, but it showcases their confidence, their ability to execute, and again, a further implementation of their willingness to go in the early game and start building these advantages right from level 1.
And also, teams just need to start sending it. It's proven time and time again that the team who's willing to be proactive is often the team taking the lead, the team snowballing the lead, and then winning the game. So teams need to stop being afraid. And I love the fact that Haru, and not only Haru, but also Labrov, has started being indicated in this team. Quite often, you would just see Labrov chilling with Carsey in the bot lane, wouldn't really be part of that mid-jungle support unit we so often see top teams have. But in recent games, Vitality, not only has they gone run and pull the trigger, they've actually become quite good at it in the last 2 games we've seen. So I'm super impressed by the fast development we actually saw from the Vitality roster.
So what does Kazi have to do then when he's in the bot lane on his
chilling.
own?
Just farm.
Chilling. He's good at Monestral. He's done this in Mad Lions before. It's a style he's suited with. I think actually it's something that I hope Vitality would have done initially when this roster came in, because I was like, okay, how many of this roster is actually selfless? Well, we know Kazi had a selfless style in the past. Now they finally do this where they send a support up, they have a jungler to play for as well, and the laners come in with their leads. Beautiful.
That's one way to handle, I guess, a team of experienced players, is to finally have that difficult conversation and say, right, okay, who are we going to prioritize as a star here? And Alfari is the man that we've all expected to lift the trophy at some point and still hasn't. Do you think that this is his best chance of finally doing that?
Well, funnily enough, every time Alfari's found himself in the finals, he's gone face-to-face against Perks, and it's always been Perks to act as the blocker. So he's come up with the best strat of just being on the team with the guy that's always gotten in his way. So yeah, I would actually say that given Perks can't get in his way anymore, he's actually best set up to win a title. The question is, can he do it against the opposition that is coming up? Because right now, Vitality seems to be on a tear, and their winning streak is looking to continue.
Well, let's remind ourselves of when the teams are going to be playing today. In fact, you know what? We're not. We're going to take a look at who Vitality are playing, who is coming up for them, because they've got
Astralis schedule.
Yeah, we're looking at the Astralis schedule first. No, yes. So Astralis, they are obviously playing Vitality today. Then we've got Fnatic, Mad, and Excel.
And it's not an easy schedule, basically, for Astralis.
Well, you don't think so?
It's the reason why we didn't include Astralis in that vote earlier was because it feels like done and dusted. For Astralis to be able to qualify for playoffs at this point, they would have to beat a lot of the top teams and the teams that seem to be on an upwards trajectory. And while I think that we can highlight some of the strengths, in particular in Xerxes and Jonghyun, it is going to be a very difficult achievement for them to be able to beat this level of these level of teams ahead of them.
I mean, I'll eat a hot dog out of a shoe if they make it. Like that's where I am at this point. I mean, they had that good.
Is that a famous saying in Denmark? To eat a hot dog out of a shoe.
I just wanted to be a bit extra creative. I was like, what's Danish hot dog grade? Yeah. What's the saying shoe? Well, if we put them together, there we have it.
All right,
shoe on the table. But the thing is, I think as well that the highs we've seen from Astralis is just the fact that they're so inconsistent. Quite often they come from Xerxes, he finds his own individual lead, and they're just not able to amount to further than that. They're so inconsistent with it. Vitality's schedule now, well, obviously, it's Astralis, but they also have SK. And I feel like these are 2 teams that we are all expecting them to beat. And even in recent form of Vitality, looking at this Fnatic matchup, I'd say they're actually coming in as favorites as well.
And I think that's the most important thing. Right now, Vitality look like a lock-in for playoffs. Traditionally, 9 wins is the cutoff point that you need to secure a spot in playoffs. I don't think in Europe's history has there ever been a team with 10 or 11 wins that hasn't qualified. When you have Astralis and SK is Europe coming, even if you lose the Fnatic road game, Vitality will find themselves in a comfortable position. So nothing but credit needs to be given to Vitality because their expectations were low coming into this split, and the level that they're showcasing right now is the level that I think many expected at the beginning of the year, and maybe we'll finally get to see the true power of this super team.
And sadly, I won't get to see Goldborg eat a shoe. But anyway, we're only minutes away from getting into the picks and bans of this Astralis Vitality matchup. But before that, Law was able to catch up with Astralis' coach, AOD, so we'll head over to the sidelines.
Thank you, Frankie, and AOD, thank you so much for joining me ahead of today's game versus Vitality. The desk was just... My pleasure. The desk was just talking about Xerxes and how his impact throughout Astralis' victories has been immense this summer. How do you reflect on what he's been doing as a coach?
I mean, I'm pretty happy with his performances, especially in the last 2 weeks. I think he's shown significant growth throughout the early game, which is something that we've been working on. And I think it's been showing in the last 3 games, so I'm pretty pleased, I would say.
It is actually interesting because Xerxes is an experienced player. He's been playing for years in different regions also. Where do you see progress for him?
I would say when I looked at him in NA, I would say in the first clears, maybe he was a bit stagnating, as in like he was always doing the same thing, I felt. And I think right now he's kind of seeing a lot more, doing a lot more. And I think that's basically the main difference for me.
I agree.
He's always been good in the later parts.
Always, always. And his synergy with Jonghyun also on the bot lane is amazing. Jungle super synergy for Astralis has been stellar. And when you think about Astralis for summer, 6 and 8 so far in a very packed and stacked league. Does this reflect the expectations you had coming in summer?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think we had even more. Like maybe that sounds bad, but it's just how we felt after off-season. You know, like we've just had very good results against most teams. And I think we had some games that we actually sadly lost from a winning position this split. Like I would say 3 that really should have belonged to us and didn't. So yeah, I think it's just a bit below what we expected, but I wouldn't say we are too unhappy, you know? Like, I think on a good day, we can take anyone, and there's bad days like yesterday or last week against SK, so you can never know with us, I guess.
I agree, and there's still 4 games actually to make it right and reach the playoffs. You talked about any team. Today you'll be facing Vitality. They've been doing so much better lately. What's your take on the team, their improvements, and what can we expect on the matchup against them today, especially when you think about the jungle matchup?
I think it should be more explosive than yesterday, I would say. Like, I think both teams are good when on a good day, right? And I think they've had a pretty good streak lately. There's not many weaknesses shown, but obviously there are stuff you can do against them. So I just expect a really good game, you know? Like, I think I like our matchup.
Oh, I wish you the best of luck on this game, of course. Good luck on the Rift. Thank you so much for the interview. And Gaster,
thank you as well.
Back to you for the first game. Bye-bye.